You are about to experience the outermost reality.
My name is Olivia Jenkins, and I'm 89 years old. I lay in this hospital bed, surrounded by sterile white walls, the gravity of my situation weighing heavy on my heart. It was in this solemn moment that I came to terms with the fact that I was nearing the end of my life. Despite knowing the end was near, I formed an unexpected bond with the young male nurse who tended to me daily. His name is David, and from the moment he walked into the room with his warm smile and gentle demeanor, I knew there was something special about him. He treated me not just as a patient, but as a person. One morning, David walked in and greeted me. "Good morning, Mrs. Jenkins," he smiled as he entered the hospital room. I returned the smile, albeit weakly. "Morning, dear. How are you today?" He moved briskly around the room, checking the monitors and adjusting my IV drip. Our typical conversations would be meaningful but short due to his tight schedule. On one particular day, David checked on me and, with a curious expression, asked, "Mrs. Jenkins, if you don't mind me asking, I couldn't help but notice the photograph on your bedside table. Is that your husband?" I replied with a raspy voice. "David, he is not my husband, but I will tell you about this man who profoundly affected my life." I asked David if he had the time to listen to his story. With an enthusiastic look, he nodded and replied, "Absolutely, Mrs. Jenkins. My shift is over." I started to reminisce, my mind transporting me back to a time filled with vibrant colors and echoes of laughter and pain. As an 18-year-old woman with hopes and ambitions, I lived in a small fishing town where everyone knew everyone else, and gossip traveled faster than the wind. I worked at the local diner for my senior year of high school before I was to attend college in the fall. I served meals to familiar friends and neighbors. One day at work, the owner asked me to visit our local market and ask Mr. Kendall for fresh fish. Mr. Kendall is a middle-aged man who owns the local fish market. He physically had weathered hands and a face lined with the wisdom of years spent in the water. His market was filled with fish of every shape and size laid out on beds of ice. Every week, when I would pick up fresh fish, I started a conversation with him. And before I knew it, we were chatting like friends. Our weekly meetings soon became a ritual. We shared stories as he imparted his wisdom with gentle patience. At first, I was hesitant to open up, to reveal the doubts and fears that lurked beneath the surface of my confident facade. But he had a way of listening as if every word I spoke held weight and meaning. Slowly, hesitantly, I began to share my hopes, dreams, struggles, and uncertainties, especially about attending college. Admittedly, I only began looking forward to working at the diner to have an excuse to see my friend at his fish market. My life was on track, but life, as it often does, had other plans for me. I explained to David that 3 months into working the diner, I started to suffer from severe headaches. The symptoms were so bad I began to miss work. My family physician suspected the pains were due to stress and prescribed some bed rest to help me relax. The headaches did not ease up, and soon I suffered other symptoms like vomiting and loss of appetite. One day, I felt well enough to work at the diner. My manager was happy to see me and mentioned that Mr. Kendall even inquired about my whereabouts. I asked my manager if I could go and pick up our order from the fish market. On my way there, I remember my anticipation bubbling as I traveled the familiar streets to see my friend. It had been over a month since I last saw him, and I couldn't wait to catch up. Moments later, I swung the market door open, and with his radiant smile spreading across his face, he said, "Olivia, it's so good to see you. Where have you been?" Before I could explain my recent health concerns, he immediately asked if I was okay. I could tell in his eyes that he noticed my dramatic weight loss. I explained that I had taken some time off work because of my headaches. I reassured him that I was fine and that my family doctor was treating my ailment. Mr. Kendall nodded, and his eyes pierced through me with a clarity that took my breath away. Olivia, you are in grave danger. Please don't ask me how I know, but I would tell your doctor your symptoms are because of a brain tumor. I remember a whirlwind of disbelief and fear consuming my thoughts. I asked myself why someone I consider a friend would say something hurtful. There was no way he could know what was wrong with my health. I need to leave, I began, my voice barely a whisper. I need to go. I can't be here. Mr. Kendall hesitantly grabbed my arm and explained. Olivia, I can see things, the future, I mean. His voice trembled, and the next thing he said shook me. Olivia, before you leave, I could cure you. I have a way to take the disease away. I remember running out of the store, not knowing what to make of what he disclosed to me. I was left with mixed emotions. There was no denying that I felt betrayed by him when he said I was in grave danger. Yet deep down my soul, I believed him. My headaches persisted, so my doctor wanted to schedule an X-ray of my head. When I posed my concerns that my headache's issues might be a brain tumor, both my parents and physician dismissed my fears by reassuring me that everything would be fine. In the days that followed, my symptoms got worse. I started vomiting uncontrollably and felt extremely fatigued. I explained to Nurse David that it wasn't easy to detect a tumor back in the day. Technology wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. I was waiting for my X-ray to reveal what I already knew. I was dying, and deep down, I knew there was nothing that was going to save my life. David leaned in, eager to hear the rest of my story, and asked, Olivia, what happened next? I explained that our family physician called and wanted to do further testing. My parents' expressions on the phone told me they were concerned. My father, a highly ranked officer in the army who is typically stoic, was visibly upset after the call. For months, I had battled this mystery illness, its grip tightening with each passing day. Doctors offered little hope. I was clinging to a sliver of hope that somewhere, somehow, a cure existed. The next day, I took a deep breath, mustering the courage to contact Mr. Kendall. He was warm and concerned when we spoke. Mr. Kendall explained that I should trust him, and that his unconventional cure for my brain tumor would work. He told me to meet him at the beach later that night. After my parents said their goodnights that evening, I lay silently in the dark. On the precipice of the unknown, I felt a flicker of anticipation ignite within me. I snuck out in the middle of the night, my heart pounding rapidly, not knowing what awaited me. Standing at the beach, I saw Mr. Kendall approaching, his figure silhouetted against the night sky. Without a word, he took my hand and asked me to follow him. We jumped onto a boat, and soon he rowed us into the open ocean. My heart was pounding out of my chest, yet I strangely trusted Mr. Kendall. We are here, Olivia. We must enter the water. He reached his hand out to me. With the endless body of water stretched before me, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath before jumping into the dark water. Feeling the ocean's water hit my skin, I felt the shivers racing down my spine. I surrendered myself to the mysteries that awaited me. He jumped in right after me. At that moment, the water glowed, emanating from the depths below us. The water vibrated uncontrollably, and I couldn't believe what I witnessed. The glow took on a distinct shape. A sleek and otherworldly craft emerged beneath the surface, its metallic exterior shimmering in the moonlight. At that moment, Mr. Kendall began to change. His form shifted and contorted, his features elongating and transforming before my eyes. In moments, he stood before me not as a man but as something alien and incomprehensible. I watched in awe as his true nature was revealed, his body pulsating with a radiant energy that seemed to defy the laws of nature. He reached out to me, his touch sending waves of warmth and understanding cascading through my soul. I felt an energy transfer from Mr. Kendall to me. We would jump back in the rowboat. Sitting next to him, rowing back to shore, I knew he had to explain what had just happened. He explained that he had been on Earth for almost 200 years. His spacecraft crashed into the ocean, and he has been stuck here ever since. He described an experience where an injured fish healed when it was directly on top of his spacecraft at the bottom of the ocean. Throughout the years, he has healed different animals by bringing them to the crash site. I eventually got home and walked in dripping wet, exhausted, and in utter shock from the night's experience. As I slowly opened my eyes the following day, I noticed the absence of that familiar, gnawing headache. It was a pain I had become accustomed to feeling over the past several months. I felt a complete sense of inner peace for the first time in a long time. Unfortunately, that sense of calmness would not last long. My father slammed my bedroom door, crashing against the wall. My heart leaped as I jolted upright and had to explain to my father where I had been in the middle of the night. "Olivia, I just had a conversation with Mr. Monroe, and he said he saw you with the fish market owner getting inside a rowboat last night." "What in the world were you doing?" He stood in my doorway, visibly upset. Looking back, I realized I had made the biggest mistake of my life at that moment. I told my father the truth. I recapped the entire night's events. I explained to him that Mr. Kendall had cured my headaches, that he was an alien, and that his UFO was about a few miles from the beach. My father, a high-ranking officer whose name carried weight within the ranks, got Mr. Kendall arrested. The word around town was that the state and local authorities were investigating the bottom of the ocean for the submerged spacecraft. That would be the last time I heard from Mr. Kendall. From time to time, I would ask my mother what had happened to him, and all she would say was that he was confined to a maximum prison, never to be released. Mr. Kendall fulfilled his promise to heal me. Years went by, and I fulfilled everything I wanted in my life. I had a beautiful family and career. Unfortunately, I outlived everyone I loved. I realized this story I shared with David was an unbelievable account of my life, but I kept this secret for far too long. At that moment, I began to weep in front of Nurse David as I proclaimed, "I'm why my friend is gone. It's all my fault. He gave me a second chance in life, and I was responsible for his being taken away." All of a sudden, I began to cough, and I started to have trouble breathing. David immediately held my hand, and at that moment, I watched as David's features began to shift and contort, and his skin took on that familiar hue. David's eyes seemed to glow with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. David turned into that familiar alien in front of me. When I saw my old friend in his natural form, I realized Nurse David was Mr. Kendall, but I still had to ask. He didn't speak, but nodded yes. He revealed himself to let me know he was all right, but quickly vanished into thin air. For the second time in my life, I was given a gift. Mr. Kendall saved my life at 18 and allowed me to experience a fantastic existence. Now that my life is ending, he has taken away my last regret. I'm grateful that he is free and safe, and now I can go in peace.